All right, today we're working on the LSFC. So the plan is to get the engine, trans, drive shaft, diff, and axles all back in this car. I actually started on this project the other day and ran into a bit of a complication. Let's flash back to a few days ago. We are bringing back the abandoned LS Swap FC. We kind of abandoned it for a couple weeks. We took a little break from her, but we're gonna get back. We're gonna go hard. We're gonna get this thing running and driving. That is the goal over the next few days. So put it in the trailer, get it out of our way, get the RX-7 in. All right, the old LX-7. I never remember what we named this thing. Anyway, it's in, it's on the lift. So basically get the whole drivetrain in. That's an optimistic goal, but we're gonna go for it. So let me get cleaned up and organized and let's get right to it. All right, we got our motor pulled out and ready. We got all our stuff up here. I do need to go get flywheel bolts. I gotta figure out what size these are, I forget. Run to the old Ace, pick some up, clean this up, start slamming it together. Definitely can't complain about getting to drive this thing around though. I'm absolutely loving having a cool old 90s car as a daily. I guess technically two now. I will say, I posted on Instagram about like which car I should keep the other day. And I will say I'm leaning towards the Subaru. I think a big part of me enjoying it more right now is just because it's fresh and new. But also, you know, I've put a lot more time into it than I have this. I haven't really done anything to this other than drive it, which is great because it's reliable. But, you know, it's just kind of like I've rebuilt the whole freaking Subaru pretty much. So it's like, I don't know, just like means more to me, I guess. So anyway, this thing might be up for raffle soon for any of you guys who are interested. Oh God, I just drove off the road. That's what happens when you try to look at your camera screen and drive. Don't do it, kids. Anyway, this thing will probably be up for giveaway soon once we get my merch back up and rolling. But for now, it's my daily. All right, we got all our bolts. Lots of bolts. I also finally bought some for my stand because I never have the right bolts and I have to use like washers and too long of bolts and it's just a pain. And some to pull it out because I never have the right bolts to put in the heads to hook the chain up. So we are set. We got bolts to put it together and bolts for pulling and working on the stand. So I'm hyped. I'm glad I thought about that. Okay, off to O'Reilly's. We need to get a filter, spark plugs, pilot bearing, and something else. Clean this flywheel up and get her bolted on and get the clutch on and then bell housing on the trans and then trans on. Nope, that's not it. It's like the wrong clutch. All right, well, this clutch kit came with the car, and I guess I should have checked to make sure it was gonna fit, but it doesn't fit. The pressure plate, you can see how the dowel's like right next to the bolt, and none of the bolt holes have a dowel anywhere near them. Like, it's impossible to put it on without cutting the dowels off. So I'm gonna do some research and figure out, like, I just feel like, I don't know how you mess up ordering a clutch for an LS. They're like all the same, unless this is like some oddball flywheel that has the dowels in the wrong spot or what, I don't know. So I'm gonna look it up, figure out what I'm gonna do. So now that you're up to speed, here's our new clutch kit. We'll open that up and show you in a second, but we need to do some car shuffling. We gotta get the LS Miata out, RX-7 in.
Backward?
Yep. All right. All right, now we're basically back to where we started the other day, or where we ended the other day when we couldn't put our clutch on. Time to check out this bad boy. Dang, look at that packaging. Got some sweet stickers. Oh man. I gotta say, man, this is some top-notch packaging. So when I was trying to figure out what to do, I knew that clutch wasn't gonna fit. I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do, basically. Buy a flywheel for that clutch, or buy Ben's monster clutch, or replace his monster clutch. And after looking at like the two side by side and seeing the differences, like the quality of this kit and his kit, I guess from what they were telling me is like an old kit, the quality difference is huge, like absolutely huge. And the flywheel that I would have had to buy to work with that clutch was like a lightweight one that they had like drilled holes in, and it looks sketchy. LS, if you ever messed with an LS clutch setup, you know that they're incredibly heavy. They're probably 50, 60 pounds. Combined into the stock flywheel is 28. And I've seen, there's people who've had them go flying through the floorboard, and that's like chop your legs off territory that I'd prefer not to go down that route. So anyway, when I was looking at Ben's stuff, I was really, really impressed, especially with the flywheel, which I'll show you guys here in a second. Oh, see, it's bolted together. That's a smart way to do it. Let me get this out and show you better. It's really nice that they include flywheel bolts, because no other clutch company that I've dealt with does. And like usually when you're doing a swap, like at least for us, you're buying an engine and a trans separate, you don't get any of this stuff. So then you get your clutch in and you're like, shit, I don't have flywheel bolts. Well, these are pressure plate bolts, but same thing. This is some fancy stuff, man. So we've got a pucked disc with ceramic disc material. Look at this flywheel. This is the thing I was like most impressed with when I was looking at Ben's. So it's a billet steel flywheel. This is an 18-pound flywheel, so it's 10 pounds lighter than the stock one. They mill it down, they engrave it, made in Texas, like beautiful. Look at here, let's compare. I almost dropped that on the disc. Look at that. Now look at this stock replacement flywheel. So check this out. The stock flywheel has two dowel pins. This is the problem I was having with the other clutch, was the dowel pins weren't in the right spot. But two dowel pins, look at how big they are. Now look at this flywheel. It has three dowel pins, and they're literally twice the size. Like twice the size, which is good. I mean, you need as much support there as you can get, especially with how heavy this pressure plate is. These heavy pressure plates are monsters, because I mean, they're meant for a big V8, but they're just incredibly heavy. It's hard to be putting way nicer parts in this car than I have in my car, or in the Miata rather. They're both my car, but anyway, this thing's gonna make more power. It needs more sturdiness as far as clutch and pressure plate and fuel system goes. So let's get this pilot bearing out. I don't know that I've ever done this with a slide hammer. So we just rented these from the parts store. This is a pilot bearing attachment. So this is gonna go in there and we're gonna tighten it up. Oh no, does it not fit? No, come on, man. Oh, it fits, okay, sweet. So we're gonna tighten that up. That's gonna grab onto the back of the bearing. Drop breaking everything. I think I gotta tighten this down a little more. Okay. Crank down pretty tight on that this time. I've tried the grease trick that everyone talks about, and I've never had success with it. So I'm probably just doing it wrong, but let's see if this works. Like a charm. That was cake. Sweet. All right, got our new pilot bearing. You know what? I'm gonna do what I did last time and clean this out, because that helped a lot on my last engine. Right, now we're gonna install our new boy. Perfect. Gotta go check the trailer, see if we have any brake clean in there to save the day. Let's see, none up there. Oh, jeez, this thing's on a slant. No! Thought we had at least one can left in here. Trailer did not save the day today. All right, back to the store. All right, we made it back. I think the Subaru has some vacuum leaks. I really want to mess with it, but I keep getting distracted by this thing. It's running and driving. That's good enough for me for now. We need to focus on this. So we're back. We got our bolts. We got our brake clean. We're ready to go. All right, so the first step is getting the flywheel on. So we use some thread sealer, some Loctite to make sure that everything's good on the flywheel bolts. Not something you want backing out. It'll rattle, make noises. So we torque them all down to spec using something to hold the crank at the very front. Then we use our clutch alignment tool to get our clutch disc and pressure plate on. It is really nice that these come with pressure plate bolts because you don't have to go get them. And yeah, so we get that on, we get the starter on, and we're done. All right, so now we need to get our remote bleeder line on, which we have our kit right here. And then we need to get our clutch hydraulic feed line on. So we're gonna run a 3AN line out. So let me show you guys what I'm talking about here. So this is normally your bleeder. So you would basically crack this and then the fluid pour out and pour into the bell housing, and it's really hard to get to, especially in a swapped car because the bell housing, the transtunnel area is a lot smaller. So that's one thing we're changing. We're putting this line on so to bring the bleeder out here. I have it on my Miata, it's way easier to get to. And then we're gonna put a braided line from here. So this is basically the feed and return to the master cylinder. So we've got these fittings which should plug right into here. I gotta figure out exactly how to get this fitting out. They're like this kind of quick connect style. I have this fitting, but it's not the right flare. It's like an inverted flare, and it's inverted flare in here, so I don't think it'll seal up. So anyway, we got these. You should do the trick. Just gotta figure out how to get this one out. Looks like there's just like a pin. Pull this thing off so we can get a better look at it. I wanna replace this throwout bearing too with the one that comes with the Monster clutch kit. I think it's a nicer piece. This slate is questionable. I don't know where it came from, what brand it is. Might be junk. Yeah, it looks like it's just a roll pin. The only thing that sucks is the punch I have that would probably fit that I broke doing a CD09 trans shifter thing. So I gotta come up with something that's like the perfect size to punch that out. All right, we got that guy out. Oh, the fitting pops right out. Then we got this to male AN. Well, that was a bit of a struggle. The other one just like slides in so easy. I had to end up tapping this one in far enough to get the pin in. I didn't realize it wasn't in far enough, and I started trying to put the pin in and it wasn't going in. But anyway, figured it out. So now we can move on to bleeder line. So now we're just getting our lines on ahead of time. You have to get these lines on before you put the bell housing on. I mean, I guess you could put them on with the bell housing on, but you definitely can't do it with it in the car. So we get those on ahead of time. We change our mind and switch them around because the bleeder line was longer than the actual clutch line. So we switch those, and then we get our bell housing on and bolted down. Super, super easy. You can get to all the bolts, no problem at all. All right, bell housing is on. Clutch slave is on. We've got this is our remote bleeder line. The line that came with the remote bleeder was actually the longer one. I had that line left over from the LS Miata project. This, which it's really nice if you make the remote bleeder line super long because you can put it in the clutch master cylinder and just pump it through to itself so you don't have to spray fluid on the floor. But I need to make sure it's gonna reach the master cylinder. So I put the longer one on the actual clutch feed and return, and then this is my bleeder. So anyway, ready to go. New hardware. Some of the hardware I bought wasn't right, but we had enough to make it work. So now we got to put the trans on the engine, which is always the worst part, because so when I align this one, I like to align them by eye because I seem to have much better luck that way. But this time, I decided to try using the clutch alignment tool. So we'll see if it goes on easy or not. I'm gonna grease the splines of the trans just to make it easier, and we'll give it a shot. Stabbing a transmission is always much easier with a second person. You kind of need someone in the back to twist it left and right, and you in the front to pull it up and down. All right, well, I stand corrected. That was one of the easier trans installs I've done as far as like getting it to go into the splines and pop in and get far enough on to get a bolt in it and suck it all the way in. Like went on like no trouble at all. So I guess the trick is, I think maybe this is something I never did. If you align the clutch with the clutch alignment tool, once you tighten it, you have to still get it center. You can't just put it in there and tighten it down because it can move up and down some. So try to get it center, tighten it down, and then make sure you can easily move it in and out without like it getting caught up or being hard. Because if it is, then you're probably gonna have trouble getting the trans in. So anyway, that one's super easy. New bolts look fancy. Not that you see them. So yeah, I mean, motor's ready to go back in. Double check, make sure we're good to go there, and try to drop this thing in. I need to pull the trans mount back out. I just put it in there for routing the fuel lines, so I know where to route them, and like know how much room I had and stuff. So we got to pull that out, and then yeah, try to drop this thing in. So now we're just getting everything ready to go in. We got to move the engine out of the way so that we can drop the car down, because we're going to drop the engine in from the top. This is kind of the first time in a while I've dropped an engine in from the top. Another thing we did when we pulled it out is we unbolted the engine mounts themselves, but it goes all the way across and is kind of under the steering rack. So we had to bolt those back in, so we're ready to put the engine back in. And then it's just kind of messing around, getting everything tightened down, getting our spark plugs changed and all of that, because, definitely want to do it outside of the car instead of in the car, because there's a little bit more room to get to everything. And then we're ready. All right, guys, got the engine ready to go back in. Everything's together. We got spark plugs on it. I've got the mounts straightened out, so I think we are ready to go. I found some longer bolts. The bolts that they had bolting the engine mount to these mounts was like super short and sketchy, so the bolts I got for the pressure plate, which I didn't need with this clutch, I'm gonna use for that, so that's good. Good to go. Oh man, that looks sketchy. Threads are a little burgered up in there, but we'll be all right. I guess it's time to drop this bad boy in. I think I just put bolts in this because it was missing 2 bolts. I think I'm gonna have to pull this off though. Oh, I forgot to take the trans mount off. Look at me getting ahead of myself. All right, got the trans mount out of there. I'm gonna try to swing it in here with the shifter still on. I think we can do it. Give it a shot, see how it goes. Alright, quick status update. We are mostly in. Just getting this one side on is being a pain. It's pretty much how it always goes, putting motors in from the top like this. There's always, usually, I mean, you can't usually get both sides at once, and usually you can kind of get like one side in, and then you gotta like wrestle it around to get the other side in. It's just like, it's a balancing act of like trans height, trans left and right, engine height, engine tilt this way, tilt that way. Like all of those are factors of like where you put the chain, where you put the jack, pushing the jack, like up with the jack, down with the jack. So just one of those things. It's a little tricky, but we'll get it. All right, well, I put pan on here. If you haven't seen that episode, I put the pan off my Miata because it has more clearance at the front, and it's got cast-in baffling, but it does not clear the steering rack. It might be clearing right now because of where we got the engine, but you can see how far off the engine mounts are, and it's just jamming into the steering rack. So like this mount kit is going to require being spaced way up or something to get this to work. So what we need to do is pull the engine at least like halfway back out, get some spacers under the engine mounts, and then try to put it back down. So my plan is to try to just lift it up enough to get the spacers under there without having to pull it all the way out. That would be ideal. So, but it might be tricky to get to them without lifting the car all the way up. So we'll see. We'll jimmy with it and see what we can figure out. I was digging, looking for the spacers, and I found this, and I was like, I gotta do it to them. I gotta do it to them. Can't find the spacers though. I'm sure I'll find them somewhere. So I was looking for these big fender washers that I had, and I couldn't find them anywhere. So I had this leftover aluminum from cutting out the circles for the fans on my fan shroud that I built for the LS Miata. So we just cut them into some strips and then cut them into some squares. So we're gonna use these basically as our spacers. So once we get them all cut up, it was time to drill some holes in them. So I just decided to clamp them all together so I could just drill all the holes at the same time. That is one nice thing about aluminum. It is really soft and you can drill through it so fast. You don't have to run, step the bits up. It's easy. So I cut just a bunch of squares out of this leftover aluminum that I had, drilled some holes in them. I hope that hole is big enough for the bolt that's in there. That's a pretty big bolt, so we'll see. I don't have bigger than a 1/2-inch bit, I don't think. So fingers crossed they're the right size. But I chose aluminum just because, one, I have more of that left over, and two, it's way easier to drill through. So, seemed like the best choice. So I cut out a bunch. I should be able to do like 4 and 3 or something along those lines, because there's a front bolt and a back bolt. And I don't think I'll need to space the back bolt up as crazily. I mean, I need to kind of evenly so that it doesn't twist, but anyway, I'm gonna jack this thing up and see what I can do under here. So now I'm just working on getting the engine lifted up and out of the way enough for me to get under there and space up the cross member that is the engine mounts. They're connected together and they go, from one side to the other. So I'm just trying to get it kind of out of the way and get the car up in the air so I can get under it easily and get to everything. All right, well, we've encountered problem number 2, which is part of problem number 1. This part of the steering shaft is directly above the engine mount bolt. So there's no way to space it up because it's already basically touching right there. So, I mean, there's absolutely no way I can space this up as I was planning on doing. So, I mean, I could try to put them between here and the mount itself, but that's just gonna kind of like make it worse and worse the further we go. So, I don't know, I guess I'll give that like a shot. But I mean, this mount looks pretty shot over here. It's like starting to tear. I might just have to get a whole new mount kit for this thing, man. This is why you don't take on unfinished projects, because it never ends well. It's not true. Yes, I mean, every time I've done it, it hasn't ended well. So I think I can say that it never ends well. So we'll figure it out. It's just, man, I thought I had it with those spacers. Apparently not. So we'll figure it out. So I decided to try to space up the passenger side because the passenger side didn't have anything interfering from it going up. So I figured, okay, maybe I can space up this one side and get that engine mount to go on, because I could get one side on, I just couldn't get the other side on. It would be too far away. So I tried to do that. I jacked it up. I got the plates in, and then I got the engine mounts bolted back down. And then it was time to try to kind of mess with it and try to get the engine to jimmy back in. So I'm trying all the different things to try to figure this thing out and get it to jiggle its way in. And the bolt was just not even close. Like, you couldn't even feel it at all in the hole. It was nowhere to be found. All right, guys. Well, I'm at a bit of a crossroads here. I can get one bolt in. The other one is just not, it's just not possible. I can get this side in and not that side, or vice versa. I spaced up this side as much as I could, but I can't really go any higher with it. You can see that the oil pan is just sitting on the steering rack right now, and that is a very, very like high clearance oil pan. It is meant for swaps and to be as thin as possible, and it's hitting. So I'm sure there's a pan that would clear, slightly different design. I'm sure obviously there's a mount kit that'll clear with the pan. I could make new mounts. I could definitely do that. But you know, that just becomes a much bigger project. And the point of this thing was just kind of to get it and, you know, throw my pan and stuff on it, throw it together, and have fun with it and see what came of it. So it turning into this huge project, I mean, I don't, you know, the only thing that's really nice on this car is the cage. It's got a really good cage in it. Cage fits really tight. I mean, you can't even see it up here. Like, it is a really nice cage, but you know, I mean, this isn't going to be a Pro 2 car. If I end up going that route, if I do end up trying to get my Pro 2 license and going into Pro 2, like, this wouldn't be the car. It's way too, you know, it would take way too much work to get it up to the level of a Pro 2 car. The other big thing is the diff. The diff's the limiting factor on these. Even naturally aspirated, they blow up, and I was like, okay, well, I'll slap it together, have fun with it. If I like it, you know, I can put a 488 in it, but you know, it's just kind of basically becoming like a full build, and I don't know that I care enough about it to do that. I really don't. My only real game plan with this thing is to do the budget turbo LS, you know, stock box stuff for drifting and see how it holds up, because you know, there's not really much information on that, and you know, that would be a good option for people. But you know, I feel like if I'm gonna go through that much work, I might as well do it in a better chassis. I've wanted to build a 4-seat drift car for a long time now, so it's like, if I'm gonna fully build a car, I might as well build what I want, not just what was supposed to be an easy, fun, slap it together project. So, you know, I don't know. You know, we could pull the drivetrain out, pull the fuel system out, you know, keep the good parts, and then sell this to somebody who wants to do an LS swap and an FC with its caged. You know, include the swap parts, include the diff and axles and stuff, and you know, someone would, you know, be able to do this and just get the right pan to fit or whatever. But I don't know. It doesn't seem to be worth it to me at this point. You know, I really can't find the motivation to spend the time and money to get this thing working now. You know, I mean, you expect issues. We ran into some, but at this point, it's just like kind of piling up. And I'd kind of rather focus my time and energy on something more fun and more unique, you know, because I have the Miata. That's my drift car. That's my baby. That's my Pro-Am car. You know, and if I do end up doing Pro 2, it's not going to be this car. I'd have to build a different car anyway. So this car really serves no purpose other than a test bed for turbo LS stuff. So, you know, anyway, it's kind of long-winded. Not complaining at all. This stuff happens. This is what happens when you buy unfinished projects. You really never know what you're getting. You know, it is a shot in the dark. It's a gamble. It can work out sometimes. It cannot work out sometimes. My Miata worked out great. I bought that car for $3,200 turboed, and I blew the motor up. But like, at the end of the day, when I decided to LS swap it, I sold $3,000 worth of parts off of it that came on it. So, you know, it's like, sometimes it works out. You know, it's just sometimes it doesn't. So, you know, you win some, you lose some. But yeah, I mean, I guess, I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know what your thoughts are. What are your thoughts on like either like a super oddball car, 4-door drift car kind of thing, or like a G35? Since I have the T56, I could really open my options up more. The G35 is logical because I could use the CD09 and the stock driveline back. Whereas since I have a T56 and I have a nice clutch for it and everything, I could kind of swap this into whatever. But yeah, basically moral of the story, if I'm gonna go through all the effort to like make a swap kit or spend good money on a swap kit, might as well do it in something I really want to do it in. So yeah, okay, well, unless I have some revelation, I'm gonna tinker with this some more, or unless I get it to fit, that's gonna be it for this video. Sorry, it's kind of a disappointing one. I really don't want to give up on it. I spent several hours trying to get that thing to fit, and determined the only conclusion was is basically buy another pan or buy another swap kit. So, or build new mounts, motor and trans, and make, you know, so yeah. Let me know what you guys think. That's gonna be it for this video though. So thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing. See you guys next time. Got 2 cool projects that I'm gonna be introducing to you guys in the next 2 weeks. They're both truck projects, so I'm hyped. They should be really interesting. So anyway, all right, enough talking, goodbye.